some of your signage. Wow, a captain. It's the first time I've had a captain
I'm the only
come
one
out.
not busy right now.
Okay. Well, real quick, my name's Torrey. I go to all the substations about some signage issues I've had at other places.
My name's Randy, by the way.
Okay, thank you, Randy. I am recording.
Okay.
Go outside real quick to show you the first sign that I have a question about. I know the law's changing.
It's going to be basically the same. It's just you'll be open carry.
Right. This sign here, the city of San Antonio, no weapons allowed in city buildings. Before, it's unless specifically permitted under Texas state license or other law.
Right.
So I've had officers tell people with licenses to carry and even CHLs they can't come into a city building because of that sign. And that's not my understanding of the law, and quite frankly, I'm baffled as to why they say that.
Well, there are private property and public property, and
Right.
public access, restricted access.
Right.
That, my understanding is you're going to be able to come in the lobby.
Right. You can now.
Right.
You can now with a license. After the 1st of September, no one needs a license, and
Right.
then anyone can come in there with or without. So that sign is going to lose all of its teeth.
Okay. Well, I will look into that and see if we need to maybe remove it or what.
Yeah.
Whatever the law reads, will be in compliance with.
Right. I know most officers aren't aware of why I go over this, but it was an issue for me just because a victim was told they couldn't carry their firearm in under threat of arrest. That person did the right thing. They went out to their car, they put it away, they came back in. But as I explained to the officer, I said, look, there's a reason this law was put into effect, and the people who put it through the Texas legislation did it intentionally for the fact that victims should not be afraid to go to the police station, and if they feel they need to carry a weapon, they can. And that's why the weapons lockers are inside. That law 411-209 is also changing with the upcoming constitutional
I
carry.
have not read it yet.
Yeah,
My understanding is that you're going to be able to carry your gun almost everywhere except private property.
Except for private property.
That doesn't want it on their property.
And again, like I said, this sign here, my main issue is, look, we all know after laws change, signs stay up, and they do. I mean, at the central substation, you've got a sign down there that's been illegal for over 15 years. But I mean they just don't come down.
Well, we got a week. I'll see what we can do to make sure we're in compliance.
So what I do, I come out, I talk to officers, let them know through the chain of command, hey, this is why I do this. When I interview officers, I wear an empty holster, but it's not to alarm them. It actually works the other way, because I ask a question about a sign, and the first thought is he's asking about weapons, checking me for weapons. I read body language, I understand that. So if I have an empty holster, it's easier for me to point to that and say, look, my weapon's in my car. I don't bring it when I talk to officers. And their anxiety goes down, versus if they're going, is that a battery pack he has? You know, what's that bulge? But again,
Reese?
yes, sir.
How can I help you, sir?
Hey, how you doing today?
Sergeant Tovar.
Hey, Sergeant Tovar. I have a question for you about the sign.
Yeah.
I take it you contacted PIO before coming out here. You know who I am and what I do, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, not a problem.
Changed by September, don't. I'm just saying, we'll comply by the law. We're not going to violate the law, of course not. I mean,
Right. Well, again, that's the reason that I've made the efforts that I have. And like I said, I mean, obviously, if you know who I am before you walk out here, you know that I do this on a regular basis at all the substations.
no, I mean, that's good. I mean, you're staying in contact with the police department. I know you've been in contact, I think, with Captain Garcia, so I'm pretty sure he's told you the same thing. So
Yeah,
but just know that we're not going to violate people's rights.
No, I understand that. And you know, honestly, 95% of officers aren't going to do that. It's the 5% that misunderstand signs or don't understand the intent of laws that overreach their boundaries that create a problem. And again, for me, it's easier to go out and educate, or at least to make an attempt to do that, and to let officers understand how the citizens feel about certain things, as well as how we interpret how officers feel about, you know, things. it's not going to have any.
I take it you've read the law. And pretty
Yeah,
much then.
I'm pretty
Okay. And you're
the
saying that
changes.
according to the law, that because it's public property, public access,
Right.
probably need to either modify the sign that says
The
restricted areas. You still can't go into restricted areas.
right. Well, that sign inside is going to cover that. This sign here is actually going to become illegal.
Okay.
It's
all right.
it's going to become one of those issues where departments get sued under 411-209.
Okay.
I'm going out of my way to make sure all the substations are aware of it.
It's 411-209.
Right. I'm also been trying to get hold of Doug Green, who used to be a PIO or public information officer.
He's still there, I think.
He's with a different department. It's a community outreach now, but the reason I'm trying to get through with him is because he
Well, I'm
does
going to send
similar.
an email.
My first issue there was a sergeant telling me I couldn't film in a public area, and I said no. I went.
We've
Yeah.
trained that out. We've trained on all that.
So I went back and I was letting the lieutenant know, look, now, in addition to that, you got another officer telling people they can't bring their firearms. And I explained that to Lieutenant Zuniga was really good about it. He's like, he read the sign, he thought about it.
Man,
He's
that
like,
was a long time ago. He's been a captain a long time. Zuniga.
no, Lieutenant Zuniga was a lieutenant last month. You might be thinking of a different
maybe there's
Captain
another
Zuniga.
lieutenant.
Captain Garcia's down at
Okay,
Central. He's
right.
been there for 3 years now.
Mhm.
So anyway, I went through that with him, talked about some of the signs they didn't have. Like your entrances here, you guys have it made. You don't have the headaches Central
Right.
does, because they have, the magistrate, everything around them is open to the public, basically. But they had some illegal no trespassing signs that prevented people from going to the magistrate. Their intention was to keep people from going into the pub, and Lieutenant Lopez went off on the deep end, and I didn't handle that well either. I mean, quite honestly, I told him, look, I'm here to talk about the signs. I followed up with Lieutenant Zuniga before some other issues, and he got, you know how if someone pushes you, you escalate. And,
Yeah.
and a lot of officers do. I do. It happens. So he came out. He was not friendly. He basically told me to go talk to the city attorney. I'm like, look, it's not a city attorney problem. It's an officer training issue. He didn't want to hear that. I explained to him. I said, look, your sign outside says I can carry a firearm in here. Your officer says he'll arrest me. And he starts, going off. Are you armed? Are you armed? Are you armed? Are you armed? And I'm like, look, you're pointing to the same sign that says I can be. That's me. But, at the same time, what you were saying, if I was open carrying and putting it in my vehicle,
Hopefully
Hey,
we wouldn't get
yeah.
burglarized here.
Well, hopefully not. Yeah, it only takes,
There's
yeah.
miles of trails over there.
So, but I mean, so anyway, he escalated it. He said he would arrest me if I did, and I said, no, you're not reading the sign wrong. He said, no, if you have a problem with the sign, go talk to the city attorney. I said, no, you need to understand what the sign says. You can't be telling people you're going to arrest them for something. And he got mad, and he started to walk off and said, we're done. And I said, okay, at this point, Lieutenant, then I'm going to tell you I have a firearm on me, which of course triggered him. And it was not the smartest, that was not smart on me. I know that, but I'm making my point. Of course, I got searched, and he got angry. And he's like, why would you lie? I said, why would you lie to me about the sign? Now you know I'm not lying about it, and that I'm telling you I came down here to make sure you're educated. So after that, of course, his captain, it got out real quick. Okay, look, guys, that is the law. He's not
Was that
BSing.
recently?
14 July. So
Okay, yeah,
with
we were kind of told. What was your name again?
Tori Reese. Yeah.
Tori Reese?
Yeah,
Okay.
and they told you I'd be by every
They
precinct.
just said, hey, you're coming around, just be FYI.
Yeah, I've dealt with that substation.
Well, it's convenient. It's central, and there's a lot of policemen.
Yeah, well,
Traffic's in there too, so.
the main reason that I was at that substation the majority of the time is also because, unlike your substation and most of the others, officers use foot traffic, so I could interview officers all
Yeah.
the time, and it was easy to do that. The issue that I had down there, again, being told we'll arrest you if you go to the magistrate, those types of issues, when I say, hey, look, well, I went to internal affairs, but I told them very specifically, I'm not trying to get this guy in trouble. And they said, go through the chain of command. I said, okay, that's what I'm going to do. So that's what I've been doing, because again, for me,
So your goal is to educate and make sure the officers know
what the law
within
is.
the law, and you think that sign is out of compliance? Probably is, but the way it's worded, it's almost a double negative.
No, this sign right now is legal.
Next week it will be out.
Next week it will be unlawful to have this
Well,
sign
I just
up.
told them before I looked at the sign, I said, when open carry comes, everybody be coming in the lobby with guns.
Exactly.
It's going to be legal.
Right. So right
My
now,
understanding.
the only reason that they have to have, unless specifically permitted, 411-209 makes it a crime for police departments to put up 30-06 or 30-7 signs.
Okay.
That's why.
For their public area.
Right, again, so that's why this sign is worded the way it is, and why they've changed the wording over the years.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, most people wouldn't know that.
I expected, really, I guess I come by here, I don't come in this entrance.
Right.
I expected the 30-06 signs out
to,
here.
to be out here, right? Because
but they're not.
yeah, and again, the reason, because it's a public part of the lobby,
Right.
and so that's the same with the sign on the inside. If you read actually the words on it, I understand why officers can get confused. And I was trying to explain to Lieutenant Lopez, because he kept pointing to the sign and saying, this sign, this sign, this sign. I said, you're reading just the top line. You're not reading the rest of the sign.
Right.
And that's what's critical, because that sign doesn't actually give you any powers. It's restricting your powers. But when someone says, oh, secure area, they go, okay, well, it must be a secure area. But in fact, that sign is saying that no weapons in the secure area, which is past the doors. So,
Right.
so I mean, if we can go in and look at it, I'll just point it real quick.
Okay.
And then
So, you had any positive results?
I've had a lot of positive results, actually. And that's why I said my YouTube channel doesn't get a lot of hits, because I'm not out here trying to make people look bad.
Okay.
So this sign here, so security area, no weapons allowed. That's the first thing that officers read, and then they assume this entire area is for a security area. And then it says licensed handgun holders may be
Right, that is
temporarily
poorly
disarmed.
worded.
It is. It's a bad choice of wording. So this part here is what this whole sign was designed to do, letting people know that licensed handgun holders may be temporarily disarmed. These lockers are here so that their weapons can be put here. But what this sign doesn't state is 411-207B and C, which clearly state that they can only be disarmed if they're going into the restricted area.
Right.
And once they leave that, they have to be immediately rearmed,
That
which is
kind of confusing verbiage there.
it is. And again, when the lieutenant kept saying, if you have a problem with the words, I'm like, I don't have a problem with the words. I understand the sign, but that's why I'm here, because it's difficult to.
It should read that if, I don't know what language you use, probable cause, reasonable suspicion that there may be a problem, maybe you can be disarmed.
Right.
But if you're just standing here talking like we are and you're wearing a gun,
Then again,
you're good.
exactly. And then, I mean, that goes back to what I was saying before. The officer on the east side, he was completely unaware, and I was explaining, well, you see, the whole reason for the law was because of victims' rights. And so you don't want that victim to be at someone else's mercy just because they had to go to the police department. You don't want them to have to go home unarmed, or if they take a bus or walk here. That's why the law was created. And then he went in and he told me, about a lady who came in there that day and was concerned. And I was like, really, if officers communicate in a more proactive way with people, and this is always hard because the first thing they see is a weapon and it becomes a threat and they're focused on it. But as you said, you're going to have people who walk in with weapons all the time.
Yeah.
They're not threats. Their body language, there's no reason to see. If you see them getting excited, hey, calm down, or hey, I understand you're getting heated here. Why don't we do this? Why don't you put your weapon over there? Not saying you have to, but it would make me feel better if you give them that option versus telling them
Yeah.
that. Then it's a win-win. If you tell them you have to, then they're going to throw that back in a lawsuit and say they disarmed me unlawfully because
Well, I
there
can
was
tell
no
you,
reason.
if you came in here, and like even right now, we're just talking.
Right.
But if you came in here and I disarmed you, I would write a report.
Exactly.
Articulating why that happened.
No, and again, you would have probable
Yeah.
cause to do
Or
that.
something like, let's say you were agitated, or it was a husband and wife with child
And
custody issues,
again,
and they're
that's
mad.
my
But they're in
biggest-
here, I'm gonna, hey, let's put the guns up while until y'all.
Right, and that's my biggest thing, honestly, because the things that I do put out, like you asked about a public service, and I will definitely put that out. But the safe zones were originally created for e-commerce, commerce, but people have been using police substations as custody exchanges for a
Some
long
of it's in
time.
the court decrees.
Right, but I tell people, I'm like, hey, if you have a problem, take advantage of this. People are less likely to act stupid at a police station. I mean,
Yes.
it's just the truth. They're like, I don't want, okay, be cool, there's people, there's cameras. I mean, it's just the way it is. And where, what I was saying about the other officer, he was like, yeah, well, she was really upset. And I'm like, you have to understand, if they have a custody issue already, they're
Right.
going to walk in upset. So,
Right.
the issue again goes back to officers. I mean, we've dealt with concealed carry and open carry in Texas long enough. Most officers are either all for it or they're completely against it. I've run across both sides, and you know what? I don't care. That's your personal business. However, how you deal with it
How
professionally
many
is what
do you think
matters.
you've contacted officers since you've been doing this?
Um,
More than 100? Less?
Probably about 65.
Hopefully they were all PD or all agencies or.
And for this particular issue, all San Antonio Police, Park Police, Transit Police, Bear County, and I actually spoke with a Texas trooper or highway patrol officer, but that was, I wasn't interviewing them about that, but I brought that up because it
So
was
if
an
you were gonna
opportunity.
give us a grade, A, best, F failing, what would you give our PD?
On 90% of the officers don't understand that a citizen's rights are their rights, and I'm not saying that's a bad
an
thing.
F.
No, that's not an F. 90% don't see that, but only about 20% of the officers I've spoken with will verbally escalate it, like when I'm speaking with
Okay.
them, to like,
All right.
are you armed? I want to search you.
So that's.
So,
60, maybe 10.
out of that smaller portion, I would honestly say that I've had officers threaten to arrest me for something that's not unlawful. 4 out of the 70 officers, 4.
Oh,
That's a very low.
Okay.
And when I say threaten to arrest me, I don't mean like throw me up against the wall. Had an officer tell me, I'll arrest you if you do that. And I said, it's not illegal for me to walk over there and film over there. It's a public area. I can't. I'll arrest you.
Be
Okay, I'm not
careful
going to
if you're
argue.
Jaywalking.
Well, I don't know if they gave you that bonus too, but yeah, I was walking, and I wear a body cam when I walk
Yeah.
across the street because,
Pedestrians run over her in San Antonio.
well, I mean, it does happen, but also officers who are upset will threaten your jaywalking thing. I mean, that happens. Look, you don't do what I do without making some officers angry. At the same time, 80% or more of the officers that I speak with afterwards, honestly, they go, hey, that guy's not bad. He's not out here
Yeah.
clowning us. He's not making us look bad. I had a good interview with Sergeant Garay on the south side of San Antonio.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah, he's a tactical medic. We had a lot in common. I'd worked on a shooting victim in, I think it was 95. It may have been 95 to 98 in a bar. And I was concerned because police weren't coming in, ambulance wasn't coming in. I'm
I
like,
don't think
why
we
the
didn't
hell?
have the TAC medic then.
No, they didn't start them up at that time. And I'm sorry, not 95. It was 2005, and they started in 2009. I thought they started in 2010, but I talked with them.
Yeah.
But I mean, interviews like that, where people see officers doing good things for the community, are important for people to see as well.
Okay.
And like I said, I mean, the little things like wordage and stuff on signs.
Yeah, that verbiage is in all the.
It's hard because, again, I mean, and that's why I say, you know, Lieutenant Lopez looks right at the sign and says, I know what I'm talking about, because it says no weapons allowed.
No.
And I'm saying,
there's a big maybe in there.
yeah, and I'm saying, look, just 2 weeks ago, the city attorney called you guys and told you this was a public lobby and I could film in here and that I could carry in here, and now you're still telling me the same thing. So where's the disconnect? And this sign is part of the problem, because
Okay.
again, it's how people read it
Yeah.
versus what the intent is. Because again, if B and C were on here, because 411-207 is just, it's the authorization for peace officers to disarm anyone, anytime. And so A doesn't apply, but B and C do. But of course, they don't put B and C here or explain it. And who's going to look that up? You're not. You're not going to need to.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Well, yeah.
You've
and
obviously read it. I haven't.
Right, and again, it's one of those things. You know, people. A lot of people do post negative things. They say, "Well, why are you harassing the cops over a sign?" I said, "Look, to me, it's not harassment. To me, it's education. To me, it's important because if one less victim gets told they can't do something, or one less right is violated because an officer knew, then I've achieved a great thing." That goes back to the other thing, the central substation. The sergeant said that he didn't want me filming in there, and when it got back, his wording, he said the reason was because there was a rape victim in the lobby.
That's reasonable.
That is reasonable. However, I'm gonna say flat out, there wasn't one there. I
Okay.
documented.
Well, that would be a reasonable
But-
reason not to, but you shouldn't be sitting in the lobby.
Well, here's where I brought that up, and I explained to the lieutenant. I told him very clearly. I said, "Well, your front desk Jen, she sees me all the time. I come in here probably at least once a week. She's like, 'Oh, you're the only guy I don't mind because you're always polite.' You know, I don't film non-government employees. I just don't. There's no
Yeah,
reason for me to do it."
little,
I used discretion. When I was at the West Side 2 days ago, there was a female in there. I turned my body camera away. When the sergeant came out to talk to me,
Do you walk everywhere you go?
I used to drive. I don't drive right now. I have seizures and I can't drive.
Oh.
So
I get. Well, you didn't walk all the way up here, did you?
yeah, it's not too far.
Good exercise.
12 miles. I used to be in the Army. I walked all the time.
Okay. Well, walk for a living.
But there's a lady in the lobby on the west side. But where I was getting at, Lieutenant Zuniga said, "Well, there's a rape victim, and how would you feel if your mom or your sister?" And I was like, "Hold on, Lieutenant. I know what you're saying, but here's the problem with that. That's not on me. That's on you to provide that rape victim privacy." And the light bulb just snapped in his head. I mean, you could see it like, wow, you're right. And after he talked to the city attorney, he called me back the next day. I was really grateful for that. And he said, you know, I brought up a couple of points. I said, "Well, you know, I'm not trying to be rude, but I'm calling BS on what you're saying about him saying there was a rape victim. I know there wasn't. There was someone in the lobby earlier. I didn't record them, but when he came out, there was nobody in that lobby for 10 minutes. But your point and what I was saying, he's like, no, you're right. In the future, we're going to make sure we take victims into the back, into the secure area." And I'm like, that's what you should have been doing to start with. I didn't say it. I'm like, excellent.
Well, it
So-
could have been other reasons. It could have been a walk-up victim.
Right.
They don't know
They
that's a
don't.
victim until they talk to an officer.
And
There's
yeah,
reasons.
I mean, there are, and again, people who do similar things to what I do, a lot of them are jerks. I know that. I see the stuff on YouTube. You got guys who, for a while, they go out and safety check police cars. I understand what they think they're saying. "Oh, we're making sure our government property's locked," and I'm like, you morons. You know, I'm sorry, but if you really want to make sure it's safe, just stay there and film it. If someone breaks into it, then turn the film into the officer. Don't go opening up the door.
All right.
I mean, you got people that do that. You got people who go around.
Glad you're not that guy.
Well, I was at the West Substation, and the guy told me, yeah, a guy came in here before wearing a clown suit, saying, why can't I wear a clown suit? You guys are clowns. And I'm like, those guys are doing that to get attention
Yes,
or
yes.
whatever. And don't get me wrong, you know, I post bad
got it.
things, I post good things.
I'm about done. I got
Yeah,
a call to 6.
I post good things, I post bad things, you know, and none of my good videos get very many views. It's because they don't draw.
How do you look them up?
It's under my name. I don't advertise or anything. It's Tory Reese, Toryries.
So how many hits you get?
Uh,
YouTube?
I only have about 100 subscribers, which isn't a whole lot. Probably about 50.
Oh, you have subscribers.
Yeah, I have people who've
So
and I only started this after the city told me that there was no body camera from the incident I had with Sergeant Ling. When he told me I couldn't film, but I had recorded it all, I was upset about
Yeah.
that. But you know,
Well, I don't have one issued. We have video here.
yeah, no, don't get
Me
me
and you are just talking.
right. No, don't get me wrong. He had on body camera. I knew he did. Internal Affairs gave it to the lieutenant. They're like, well, we don't have it. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm getting the runaround, and I'm not even trying to get the guy in trouble. So
Right.
I documented that and posted a short clip on that, and it got, like, to me, a lot of hits. You know, 1,000 hits in a day versus,
People are curious.
yeah, and versus, you know, like, I usually get, say, 1 hit, 2 hits from a friend. You know,
Yeah.
oh, he posted something new, they watch it, no big deal. Like I said, most of my stuff is educational,
Okay.
but it's long and boring. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's
You
like,
don't post this one?
yeah, this will,
When? I'll lift myself up.
to be honest with you, it'll probably take at least a week and a half for me to get it up.
Okay.
What I do, I go back, I have to sit down and put all the raw footage into a saved
Edit it.
server. Then I have to edit it. And after I edit it, then I start making sure that there's nothing, in the process of editing, I make sure there's nothing in it. For example, a victim walked by, little things like that. I have a conversation with Captain Garcia I haven't released just because it's not a good time to do it as far as, and this
Okay.
will get edited.
Well, I got a
Yeah.
roll call to go to.
No, I understand
So
that.
I know what you're pointing out. Now we'll figure it out.
Right, and again, this one on the outside, just check with the city attorney. They're probably aware of it.
That double negative makes that sign confusing.
Okay.
It makes it, in my opinion, a little compliant, but I haven't read the new law.
Right.
My understanding, you can walk in here with a gun.
That is, and if
And
you're
I'm not gonna disarm you unless I can articulate why.
exactly, and that new law will be 411-209.
Okay?
We'll post the requirements for these
Okay.
signs as well, in case you want to look it up if you have an
Stop
issue.
by anytime?
I typically, if I have a good interview, and no offense, this was a good interview to me, I typically don't stop back by the smaller substations for at least a month, just
Okay.
because I will be back by right after the first, just documenting if signs are still up
Okay.
at every substation.
I
But
can't go and actually
I
replace
know-
those signs. so
I know you can't.
Stuff moves slow sometimes.
I know you can't,
But
and
I make sure they know.
right.
but,
And again, I'm proactive. I've let the PIO know. I've let Captain Garcia know. Hey, look, I'm telling you this in advance for a reason.
Okay,
There are people that will try to sue the city. So
okay.
I'll be back out on the